this nation with its laws, inculcated within the laws, was a denigration of people who look like me. Mm-hmm. And so people fought in wars to liberate folk to come home to drink from colors only water fountains and sit at the back of the bus. Right. So it's hard to have a narrative around this. And in your book, and I want to get to the education system, when we aren't even taught the true history of this nation and all of the things that went into making it great, right? You talk about education, you talk about Finland, and you talk about Singapore being two of the most incredible education systems, polar opposites in their method, but they have a couple of things in common. Can we blow up this education system in America, which is not educating our kids at all?
My answer is yes, we can. The question is, will we? And will we do it fast enough? Look, the education system, which was the pride of the country from certainly late 19th century on through World War II. One can argue whether it should have been or not, but part of the pride. But there's no question, and this is one of the things I try to spend some time working on. Look, I'm a product of public schools. Never saw the inside of anything other than a public school, including college. I went to a small teachers' college, which is a public college. But particularly our public school system, even the school system we have, which is inadequate as it stands, is under attack. The public school system under attack by people who want the best of education to be only for the elite and privileged in the country. Now, this, you may say, is a far cry from what you're talking about, well, how we deal with our history. But I will say this. I can make an argument, you may or may not disagree, that in small incremental steps, we have been getting better. But the pace is far too slow. For example, the New York Times, which I think I could recommend, but I wish it would be taught in every school system in the country.
Why isn't it?
And it should be taught in every school system. Well, it isn't because you and I don't work hard enough to make it happen.
So who's responsible? Because at every turn, you got to have somebody, I don't want to put everything at the feet of the government, the federal government. I think all politics is local. So we really have to do the work within our own, again, communities to build the kind of world we want to see. But there should be some things that we all agree on, in terms of how we educate and how we give people opportunities. You talk a lot about equality. I like to talk about equity because you can't tell me that I'm equal because I am. I was born that way. So there's no equality discussion.
Well, all right, let's talk about equity then. Yes. I'm prepared to do that. Well, on the education system, and I think this is one of the things that unites us, which is to say, I think one of the things that unites us, that this overwhelming majority opinion, it's more than consensus, overwhelming majority opinion, that we want the best schools we can possibly turn out. There's an agreement. Now, where the disagreement comes is what does that mean exactly? Let's get down to cases. What's going to be taught? How is it going to be taught? But we all agree that we want the best schools, we want the best education we can for the most people. There's general agreement with that. How we get that is where that's exactly the kind of thing that unites us. I say, okay, let's agree we want the best schools we can possibly have for our young people. Now let you and I get down to cases and be honest with one another what you think is necessary to do that.
Right.
That one of the things, and I'm glad you mentioned Finland and Singapore, but let's keep it, both of whom have tremendous school systems, terrific school systems. They're not perfect, but frankly, they're a hell of a lot better than most of what we have here. But we have to keep in mind that, number one, both of these are smaller countries. Each, in Finland's case, they have a much more homogeneous population in terms of race, ethnicity, and religion. But I refuse to believe that in this broad and deep country, with all of the advantages we have, that we can't have a school system, an overall public school system, that's as good as Finland or Singapore. It's just inconceivable to me. But we have to get busy with it. Now, your question, well, who's responsible for this? And I, like you, I don't like to say, well, the government is the whole thing. But each and every one of us, so every person who complains about the school system, I like to say, well, what are you doing about it? Are you active in a local PTA? Are you at the school? I find, particularly with politicians, so many politicians want to talk about what needs to be done with the schools, and you say, well, excuse me, when's the last time you were actually in a school? And you'd be surprised how few of them have been in any school for 10 or 12, 15 years.